r/AskReddit. What's the dumbest rule your school ever enforced? Not being allowed to wear hoodies, jackets, or sweaters that lacked the official school logo. I was a high school teacher for several years. Both buildings I worked in were freezing, and having admin pull students out of my classroom during a 50-minute period and giving them detention instead of letting them learn is cruel and completely unnecessary, in my opinion. My school had 3 staircases along a very long corridor. We were banned from using the middle staircase because it got overcrowded. The ban was lifted once they realized it only made the other 2 staircases just as crowded. If you throw snowballs, you get a 1-day suspension. The first long weekend after a snowfall, everyone would throw snowballs to get an additional day added to the long weekend. To be fair, throwing snowballs did instigate the Boston Massacre. You can only use 3 squares of TP. You had to wear your ID around your neck on a rope thing. Then the choking started. Candy canes were outlawed because you could sharpen them to a point and use them as a shive. I went to school in rural Washington. We definitely weren't somewhere that shankings were to be expected. At my kids' elementary school, students had to smile while walking in the hall. I got Saturday school for missing a day of classes when I was 16. Seems reasonable, except I missed to go complete my US citizenship and officially become a citizen alongside my mom. It took us 12 years to go through the legal process, by the way. Whole other issue. I had a note from my mother as well as a signed official federal form they give you to explain to school employers why you were absent. Apparently the only acceptable absence excuse was illness. I got punished for becoming a citizen and now you're one of us. Congrats. Edit to add, it's like that was the last part of your citizenship journey. Getting stuffed BC of it. Elementary school principal banned talking at lunch. If you were caught talking or even signing to someone, you had to go sit by yourself on a folding chair with no table. There was once my mom came to eat lunch with my older sister and I. The principal was like, "Oh, you should go eat out in the hallway with your daughters," and she was like, "Nah, I'm gonna sit here with my daughter and her friends and talk to them and enjoy their presence." Usually if a parent came for lunch, the student could invite one friend to join, unless you had siblings. Then it was too many people, so you couldn't invite a friend. Anyway, one of my older sister's friends whispered to my mom that she was going to move so she wouldn't get in trouble for talking. This was a 9-year-old. My elementary school had those super long tables with little stools attached. Whenever a class got in trouble for being too loud during lunch, the punishment was that we had to sit every other seat. Even at like 7 years old I was like, won't we just have to talk louder to hear each other if we're farther away? That if you say to anything back to your bully it becomes a mutual conflict and isn't bullying. So if they start calling you slurs and making you feel bad every day and you call them stupid once or twice, the school probably won't help. Also, dress code required school branded hoodies. They were $50. If you wore an on-school hoodie you got in school suspension. That bullying rule sounds exactly like my old secondary school. Their policy was don't retaliate, just tell a teacher. I remember one time I had a cover lesson in the main hall and for reasons unknown the chief bully decided it was my turn to be in the spotlight. As we went in, he informed me that as soon as class ended he was going to punch me in the face. Being the scared, bullied kid I was, I went straight to the teacher and asked if I could be excused a couple of minutes early to get to my next class whilst avoiding a fist in the face, which the teacher ignored. Cue end of class. I was punched as expected in front of said teacher. My mother was not amused in the least. I didn't find out until years later that she had been down to the school outside of hours berating various teachers for their abysmal efforts to combat the bullying, which did eventually die off. TLDR. Schools absolutely suck at combating bullying. My mother is awesome. After 9/11, my school instituted a zero-tolerance policy on bullying and violence. What 9/11 had to do with bullying, I don't know. Anyways, Halloween 2001, I dressed up as the guy from Clockwork Orange. He carries a cane around. The principal pulled me aside, told me working around with a cane could be a weapon, therefore just walking with it is an act of violence, and suspended me for a couple of days, telling me that after 9/11, we don't mess around with that kind of stuff. Edit. This happened in Quebec, in a small town. The new principal made a morning roundup rule where anyone arriving to class after the last bell had to go to the cafeteria and listen to a lecture about not being late for class. This took about an extra 15 minutes, making the students even more late to class than they would have otherwise been. Needless to say, everyone hated it, even the teachers. That principle didn't last long. If we didn't see it happen, it didn't happen. All it did was train bullies to be really good at keeping their voices down and being aware of their surroundings so they could avoid doing stuff within the teacher's line of sight. It meant if you were ever outside of a teacher's vision range, you were still fair game for heaps of abuse. And if you tried to report things that teachers didn't see, then the teachers treated you like you were making up stuff. It also didn't stop teachers from enforcing double standards, like believing reports from their personal favorites even when they didn't see it happen, since they could just claim they saw it happen if it was contested. That school was basically a training facility to turn bullies into stealth experts. Toilet paper rationing. This was in 1997-98, by the way. Apparently the high school girls' room was going through too much toilet paper, so the dean, a woman, stood outside the door and distributed a few squares of one-ply institutional toilet paper to us as we went in. If she noticed toilet paper on the floor, our ration got cut down. If we asked for more for bigger jobs, we were told to save it for home. There were several episodes of girls stuck in stalls until friends could beg for more TP because of period messes or unexpected bowel incidents. The dean wouldn't even hand it over, she would go in the bathroom and pass it a few squares at a time over the door. If you didn't catch it as it fell and it landed on the floor, well, that's your fault and you're not getting more. If you used more than she thought necessary, tough luck, go to class with stuff on your body. It took about a week of extremely angry parents coming to the school and calling both the school and the school board, but we finally got our toilet paper back, unlimited. How did we celebrate? By paying her car, of course. I was sent to the principal in elementary school for getting a drink of water out of line, as in we walked down the hall in a formation and we had designated water drinking stops. To this day I still remember the principal asking angrily, well, what if everyone started getting water without permission? And I still don't have an answer. We'll all be hydrated. Closing boys' toilets, because some stuff was stealing toilet paper. When school staff announced this stupid rule, some students actually threatened to stuff on the tables then. Knew a kid that stuffed in a garbage can one time because he wasn't allowed to go by the same teacher who was denied restroom breaks while she was pregnant in high school. No beads. Apparently they thought beaded jewelry was stuff related. Nothing says hardened criminal like matching bead bracelets that say BFFS, love. We were not allowed to have facial hair at all. Like to the point where the principal would walk around during lunch with razors and shaving cream and do stubble checks. Absolutely ridiculous. And he would send tons of us to the bathrooms to shave during lunch, no matter how small the stubble was. Pull up with no eyebrows.